Hello, hello, hello. So what I want to share with you is very, very important, and that is something the Baal Shem Tov, it's very well known that the Baal Shem Tov taught this, and that is that each and every one of us has 42 life journeys, from birth to going to the higher world. Now, each one of those stops, which parallel the stops that the Jewish people went through in the desert, they are either expansive or contracted, and that's a very, very, very important word. An expansive is when a person is feeling good, basically. What makes us actually feel good is actually the expansion of the ego. We're feeling, just imagine, let's say you're, a doctor, and you're in your office, like you're feeling good about yourself. Or let's say you're a mother at your home with your kids. That's like your zone, that's your expertise, that's what you're good at. And so the point is that expansion is a very, very kind of joyful state. But the opposite of that state is contraction. So if, you're in a state where, God forbid, somebody has a gun to your head, or someone's shouting at you, so now it's the opposite. The ego is being contracted. Now it's very important to understand that you need both these events in your life. And in fact, this is exactly how we are created, we are born, we are formed. All these expansions and contractions are actually the things that shape you. So what is a person ultimately? In a way, a person is their life force, which you're not even aware of. So what are you aware of? You're kind of, you can say, aware of the fact that you exist, that you have desires. So the child that's born, there's obviously certain things that will give it pain and pleasure. And so he cries, and then he gets what he wants. So the ego feels good, it becomes expanded. And by the time a child is 2, they say there's no greater narcissist than a little child, because they just know that whatever they want, they get. And they think that they're the king of the world because the big people, which is the whole world to them, give them what they want. And then when they stop getting what they want because they're 2 and they want to drive the car and the mother says no, they throw a tantrum. So the question is, you have to actually psychologically understand, what is a tantrum? He's going crazy. You didn't give him his way. He's going absolutely berserk. He's doing everything in his power to manipulate you to give him his way. In fact, you can distract them. You can create a new way. You can say, okay, would you like this toy? And he forgets about the whole thing in 1 second. So it wasn't that thing gave him pain. It was his ego wants to get his way. He's such a narcissist, he has to get his way. But the contraction is very important, because that's insanity and it's not healthy for a person. I once asked, I have a brother-in-law, he's very bright, about an individual. So he's a very wealthy guy, a billionaire. I asked him about him. He says he's a person that hasn't heard no in 20 years. It was a brilliant description, psychological description. What does that do to a person? So in other words, a person has to be humble. And in that humility, a person begins to have a kind of common sense, because when you're so busy wanting to get what you want, it's like an addict. He's just out of his mind because he's so busy. He has this thing, he's got to have this all the time. But when your ego can go down, then you can start to think, okay, well, what should I want? What is worth wanting? What is good? What is bad? And so narcissism is a big problem. But the point is, if you're too humble, it's also a problem. You have to be a little narcissistic. Ultimately, the goal is to kind of be able to identify with your godly soul, know that that is the ultimate good, and then see the animal soul, which is just the selfish part of us, as bad, and then you can kind of put everything in its right place. But the point is, to get to this knowledge and to get to these things, it takes 42 journeys, major events in life, and these various events shape us, and they create that we're better at understanding ourselves, understanding what we should be narcissistic about, what we shouldn't be narcissistic about. And eventually we reach the promised land where the Mashiach will come and we will all be happily ever after.